Come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Nulyweds channel. Welcome back to another episode of Vlogmas. So today I wanted to talk about how to plan a wedding with COVID in mind, or rather how to keep planning a wedding with COVID in mind. This is for all of the people who are probably getting married in 2021 and want to plan with as much caution as possible because we still don't know what's going to happen. So I did write a really detailed blog on this, and I will link that down below, and that's going to go into much more detail than this video will, but I'm going to touch on the key points of how I am personally planning during this time period. So if you're interested, keep watching. My first tip, of course, is to keep your ears to the ground. You need to stay informed at every single juncture. What I'd say is that try not to overwhelm yourself with what's going on. If you keep looking at the situation every single day, it can become very overwhelming, and we all know that things change so quickly that it's not actually helpful to look at things every single day. It just only serves to overwhelm and distress you, so not even I do that. I try to pace myself when I'm looking at the world news and figuring out how this is going to affect my weddings, because at the end of the day these weddings are a good 6 months to a year out, right? So what's happening tomorrow is by and large probably not going to affect what is going to happen at the time. So bear that in mind. The second tip I have is about working with your suppliers. So I know that a lot of people feel quite anxious about moving forward with suppliers because they feel like they may lose their deposit if they need to cancel, or if they're forced to cancel, or if they're forced to postpone, and there could be postponement fees, things like that. And of course, it's been such a difficult year for suppliers. So you really have to understand both sides. You have to be really reasonable to their plight as well as they will be reasonable to yours. So my personal way of working with our suppliers and progressing as much as we can is to kind of negotiate with the deposit. So usually deposits are non-refundable, and that is completely understandable. I understand that 100%. So what we've been doing is negotiating maybe a smaller deposit, or for more payments to be made over a certain amount of time. So for example, monthly installments, or just smaller chunks. So these are ways around it. Of course, as I said, a supplier has the absolute right to reject these terms. These are just ideas. The third tip I have about planning a wedding during COVID times is to pace yourself. So pace your planning more than you would do normally. Now, I have done some planning timelines that you should definitely check out. They'll be linked in the description box down below, that you can download these timelines depending on how far you're planning to plan. I go at a nice leisurely pace, but I would say that if you are worried about COVID, then you should be planning a little bit slower. Don't steam ahead with things that you don't need to be booked just yet. You can just bide your time a little bit more. You can leverage this a lot more if you have a weekday wedding or a low season wedding, because the availability of suppliers and venues around those times is much higher than a Saturday in July, for example. So if you have a Saturday in July, then you'll need to plan at the normal pace. But if you have a Monday in August, then you have a little bit more leeway because there are far more suppliers that are going to be available on a Monday. So leverage the time that you have, pace yourself as much as possible. This is what I'm doing with my clients, so that we can always kind of see how things are going and not overbook before we need to. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Down in the description box down below, we've got the blog that goes into a lot more detail and kind of explains things a little bit better than maybe my babbly self does. But I hope that you found this video helpful, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.